Afternoon, everybody. You're with me in Care Bear Corner. I thought I would add a few of my little treasures in the corner because last week everyone was commenting about the Care Bear cushion that I had in the window, so I thought I'd add three of my little vintage figures and a cross stitch in the corner, which I did, and it's a quote and it says, "Not every day is good, but there's good in every day." So get yourself a drink. I've just got a juice today, and settle in because we're gonna have a chit chat. So this is a midweek chit chat really. I just thought I'd do a little chat about me in the past, and how I think that I've come to be in a situation where I'm a bigger lady. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault for how I am now. I know I'm an adult now, but I do think things from the past have attributed to how I am now. Excuse me. So, just going to go and grab my cushion because my back's hurting, and then I will be back. That's better. So, I don't actually think I've told you my name. Everyone calls me Sparkles, which I love. But my name is Naomi. I was born in the 80s in the Leicestershire area. I lived with my mum, and my dad and her split up when I was 2. So Dad moved away and had a new family. And I did see him for a few years, and then I don't know why, but we were stopped seeing each other. I do vaguely remember going to court and standing up and saying I didn't want to see him, although I never really felt that that was how I really felt. But at the time I just felt really kind of fiercely loyal to my mum, I think, and that was just how things were. So anyway, me and my mum lived in a small little town in, well, little village in Leicestershire, and went to a lovely little primary school, had friends, and everything was fine. There's going to be quite a few in this, I do apologise. I do have blank patches, so if I'm kind of thinking for a long time, you have to bear with me. So I don't know whether these blank patches are due to trauma or whether it's just that I've not remembered them, but this, you know, I remember some bits and I can't remember others. So I remember being with my nan and granddad a lot growing up. Again, whether that was because my mum had split up with my dad and she was a single parent, so obviously we used to see a lot of them because you know, she was on her own and maybe she struggled a bit, I don't know. I remember being at primary school, and obviously you have the free school dinners and everything at primary school, and I was happy at primary school, loved it there. And then I think the trouble, well, not troubles, but I think things must have started when I was kind of getting to teenage age or going up to high school age, which here in the UK you go up to, well, when I was at school, it's a bit different now. You go up to high school and then you went up to secondary school. So you go to high school about 11, and then secondary school you go on afterwards. So my mum met her new partner, which he was to become my stepdad, when I was about 9 or 10. She had a turbulent relationship with him. Looking back now, I think that she, you know, liked to live the life. She had parties. I remember lots of people coming and going, that kind of thing. They were a lovely couple, but whether I think she had a relationship with the drink, which as an adult now I can see that would be a problem in a relationship. Like I said, there was a lot of parties. Most weekends I'd go and stay with my nan and granddad, which was absolutely fine. But she fell pregnant with my brother anyway, which must have been around 1989-ish. Her and my stepdad split up. He wasn't around then, and we carried on. I was at primary school until then, and then I started my first high school. So this must have been about 1990. I went to my first high school, and Mum soon then after had my brother. My brother was born there's roughly about 10 years between us. My brother was born, stepdad still wasn't around, but I think he found out about my brother being born and then soon came back onto the scene. This is when I remember things starting to escalate. So things at home weren't good. Mum was drinking. She kind of didn't get up in the mornings. Looking back now, I don't know whether she had the baby blues or she suffered with a mental health issue. But now I wondered whether she suffered with something like bipolar. That's what I wanted to say, bipolar. Her mood was very up and down. You never knew what mood she was going to be in when you came in from school, whether she was going to be happy or... So anyway, going back, like I said, it's going to be a bit of a ramble because I'm all over the place with it all. I remember going to high school, and like I said, there was never any routine at home, so I often went to school with no lunch. I can remember being at high school, people with their packed lunches and stuff, and I was hungry. I can remember my stomach growling during lessons, and you know, my friends giving me bits out their lunchbox and stuff, but I never had a proper it wasn't always, but never really had a proper lunchbox. And I remember this one day going, because I was so hungry, couldn't concentrate on anything. I remember this one day going to the school office and saying, I've got no lunch, kind of thing, because they used to give you like a little credit note. I don't know whether free school dinners was a thing then, I'm not sure. And I remember going to the office and saying, look, I'm really hungry, I've got no lunch. And they said, that's fine, we'll give you this little credit note. You can go and get yourself some lunch. And then, you know, your mum or whoever can pay it back the next day. Boy, oh boy, when I got home and gave my mum this little thing, I got such a telling off. She was like, oh, you shouldn't do that. You know, you're going to get into trouble, me into trouble thinking I'm not feeding you, blah, blah, blah. I look back now and I think, really, that was a form of abuse. I was sent into school with no lunch. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I did pinch things out of the tuck box and, you know, from like, you know, the cupboards at home because I was just so hungry. But you'd come home some days and meals would be done. Other days they wouldn't be done. I mean, at 9, 10 years of age, I didn't know how to cook. And obviously I'd got my baby brother to look after when I got home. There was some times when mum wouldn't get up in the morning, so I'd stay at home with him because I didn't want to leave him on his own. But there was never any routine. So, you know, I think that kind of made me, when food was available, made me gorge on that food and made me then eat lots because I didn't know when the next one was coming. If that made sense, the next meal came. Every weekend I'd stay with my nan and granddad and things were completely different in their house. Too much detail, but my nan and granddad's house was my safe place, my happy place, you know, and I love being there. I can always remember, and I tell this story to most people that I know, but I always remember I used to stay there from a Friday to a Sunday. And I always remember there's a programme here in the UK called the Antiques Roadshow, and when that music came up on the Sunday evening, I knew that I'd have to go home after this programme had finished, and I hated it. And still to this day now, that music makes me feel sad. I mean, my mum's no longer with us and my nan and granddad are no longer with us, but just that music makes me feel sick. It's horrible. So yeah, so going off on a tangent, I think that is where my early kind of relationship came with food, and it wasn't always bad. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, I don't want to speak ill of the dead. I'm not saying she was always bad at, you know, feeding us. It wasn't the case, you know. My stepdad soon came, you know, home, and we lived as a family for a while and things were good, you know, and I remember having Sunday lunches and, you know, meals ready after school. But yeah, I think it was them early days that kind of set my problems going. I mean, I remember coming home from school some days before my stepdad came home and mum was still poorly, bless her. And I remember going in the pantry and eating like raw pasta and raw potatoes because I was that hungry, you know, that, you know, I just like I've had cereals without milk, that kind of thing, just because I was that hungry. I hadn't had anything at school. Bear with me a second. was always on the bonnier side as a child anyway, which I think is hereditary in our family because, you know, looking back, we have got a side of our family where there is bonnier children anyway. As I said, I went to my granddad and nan's at the weekend. There was more, well, routine completely there, so you knew everything was coming, and you know, like I said, that was my happy, safe haven kind of place. Going on, growing up, obviously, as I learnt, as I grew and I got older, I could obviously prepare my own food then. Food wasn't so much of an issue. Oh, sun's come out. Going on to adult life, I eventually moved out and met my first partner. We had a busy life. I worked full time, he worked full time, he was a lorry driver. And looking back now, there was always a lot of fast food. We had no cooker. So it was always a lot of ready meals, a lot of like convenience food. And I think looking back, that's when my weight started to climb, because it was KFCs when we were out in the lorry. Yeah, a lot of like microwave meals when we were back home. I worked night shifts at work, and I remember the chef always used to get us like breakfast cobs ready for when we left for work. So, you know, what really I was eating wasn't anything substantial, it was all crap. So yeah, I do think that's where a lot of I think really I was with my ex for a few years, and then I moved back home again, and then I had my son Joshua, and then we moved into our own place when he was 3, and I don't really think until then I realised, you know, my relationship with food wasn't right. But by that time I was always a big girl, already a big girl anyway. So yeah, so I do think that is where I can't, you know, it's obviously a deep stemmed right back in the back of my brain, but I do think, you know, not knowing, having no routine, not knowing where the next meal was coming from kind of was what set me up for a fall in the very beginning. But yeah, I do think that's where my food trauma has come from. And it wasn't really till I met my partner my husband that I'm with now, and I've been able to talk to him. He's been like my little counsellor, bless him, with all of the stuff that's gone on in the past. Like I said, I don't want to go into lots of detail, but there's big blocks of my childhood that I've blocked out, particularly from primary school to when we left to go to my new house. That's something else that I didn't say about that. At the end of my first high school year, we finished for the summer break, and Mum announced that we were moving, and I never got to say goodbye to any of my friends, and I really hated her at the time for it, if that makes sense. I really hated the fact that I'd done my first year in this lovely high school. I loved it, and then we went and moved, and I never kind of saw those friends again. Luckily, I have managed to find some as being an adult on Facebook and, you know, social media, so that's fantastic. But yeah, I think I really resented her for that. And the house that we moved into, I mean, it was lovely in the end, but when we first moved into it, it was awful. And then, you know, looking back now, I know why she needed to move, because we'd only got 2 bedrooms. Obviously, she needed a 3rd bedroom for my brother. With me being a teenager, I couldn't have shared with him. But yeah, I really resented her for that. And I think a lot of the kind of, my Lord, that's better. I think a lot of my kind of upset as a teenager was because I'd been dragged out of one place into another place. But yeah. But yes, and then I think, like I said, growing up, I didn't really establish a good relationship with food. We never really learnt much about nutrition and health and what's good for you, what's bad for you. So, I mean, at the time when me and my partner at the time we were earning good money. So, you know, buying takeaways wasn't an issue. Whereas now I'd never dream of spending that kind of money. But you just did then, you know. I mean, there's no way I could afford now to eat KFC for lunch and McDonald's for tea and all the rest of it. But no wonder really when I look back at the life choices that I've made. And again, maybe that was because as a child we didn't have, well, like I say, at that one point as a child, that there was no, you come home, like when my children come home, they know that their tea's going to be between 5 and 6, there's always food here, there's always food in the cupboards, but we just had no routine. I remember getting up and having to get myself to school in the morning. There was never any breakfast. There's a lot of things that, like I said, I think she was a poorly lady, and I think she had an addiction to drink. I say it's not abuse, but it was neglect, if that makes sense. So that's where my early kind of problems started. Do you have any kind of things like that, or can you relate to that? Now as an adult, I think I can see where my troubles started. It's easy to kind of understand them issues, but then I still think that as an adult I still worry about that, and I still kind of have the same problems with that. And it's hard to explain. I'm rambling now, I know, but I still sometimes I'm in that mindset, if that makes sense. But can any of you relate to that? If any of you had similar, I know my problems are nothing compared to other people's. I mean, there's some children out there that have had to go and steal for their own food. It was never that bad, and it wasn't always bad. I'm not on a pity party, and I don't want any sympathy. I just mean, obviously things weren't right at home, and I sometimes wonder why no one noticed or no one picked up on the fact that these things went on. I mean, I didn't see my dad for years, so he couldn't have ever picked up on these troubles. But I do think now, looking back as an adult, that as a teacher I would know that if a child was stealing from the tuck shop, or eating from, or asking her friends for food out of their lunch boxes, stomachs growling. I remember being embarrassed because my stomach was that loud. I mean, maybe it's because back then in the 80s we didn't know much about safeguarding, and I think that's only been a thing in recent years, hasn't it, where we know how to pick up on the signs of neglect. We know how to, I mean, there was other things going on as well. So there was things like again, I don't want to be horrible, but like my uniform wasn't always washed. I was bullied for different reasons. I was always bullied for being the bigger kid. And also I developed a lot earlier than other children. I started my periods very young. So yeah, and I suffered with smelly feet, that kind of thing. But looking back now, if there was no routine with food, was there any routine with anything else? I don't know. But yeah, but it wasn't always bad. I did have happy times as a child. I don't want you to think that, it wasn't always bad and my mum was a lovely lady. I did lose her very early in life, and that's sad. But she lived the life. She liked to parties, she liked to drink, she liked to smoke, and this is why I'm on this health journey. I'm just going to pull this curtain across a little bit, sorry Care Bears, because the sun has decided to come out. That's a bit better. So yeah, this is why I've decided now. At 44, my mum died when she was 55, but her health problems started when she was my age, and I think it struck with me New Year this year that I wanted to start my journey this year, and I started, I've tried so hard over the years to lose all this weight, but I think it struck me this year that something's got to give. My mum had a massive stroke when she was 44. Excuse me. I mean, like I said, she smoked heavily, she drank. So obviously I don't do any of that. I don't drink and I don't smoke. I just like my food. But I don't now, obviously, but I've liked my food, and I think that it struck me this year that I want to get this weight off, that I want to make myself healthier. My granddad, he lived till he was in his 90s, and he saw my mum have children, he saw me have children, and I want to do that. I want to see that, I want to see my children having children, and I want to see my grandchildren having children, and I would like to live a long, healthy life like my granddad did. I absolutely adore my nan and granddad. I mean, like I said, I had a lot of trauma growing up that I don't want to go into on here, but my nan and granddad were more my mum and dad, if that makes sense. I mean, after I lost my mum, I did find my dad, and we hadn't seen each other for 26 years. So that was lovely to meet him, and, you know, I'm now in contact with him. This looks like I'm holy, look. And I'm happy now. I've got the life that I want, and I just want to get this weight off to be healthy. I'm not I don't like the way I feel in my skin. I'm not anti-big person, but I just want to be in a healthy body, if that makes sense. So now you know a little bit more about me, and the reasons that I think I might have started to have issues as a child with food. I mean, I look back now and I think it must have gone over, well, like I said, there's a big blank patch of my memory when I try and think back. I don't remember much about the first house that we lived in. Well, I do. I have memories of the house, but I don't really remember much of me and mum there. And then we moved to the other house with my brother, and that's when a lot of stuff started. So the cat's trying to get in the door. That's when a lot of the stuff started at home, that I don't want to go into as a, you know, on my YouTube channel. But again, that didn't help the way things were. And me and my brother, we used to put him in his pushchair when he was younger, and we used to go up. There was a shop up near us, and they used to sell all like out of date chocolates and crisps and stuff like that. And because I hadn't got a lot of money back then, I think that I was only little. I think Grandad used to give me some spending money, but you could get a lot more for your money then. And they used to sell the out of date chocolate and crisps and that kind of thing. And I used to buy all that. And then me and my brother used to have like little sleepovers, and we used to make tents and stuff in the bedroom. Again, I was protecting him against stuff that was going on at home, and I suppose eating to make myself feel better then as well. So you can see where that came from. I can kind of link a few things that I did as an adult to that. You know, like as I earned money, as I got older, like you say, like I think it's nice food now I could afford then. But my children have never gone without. My children have never gone to school with no food in their bellies. And then we know as they're older they don't do breakfast, but that's their choice. It's not because I don't give it to them. You know, they don't like eating breakfast. But yeah, my children, I'm so happy to say, have never wanted for food. They've never had empty stomachs. You know, and I hopefully they will never grow up having the relationship with food that I did. But anyway, but yeah, so that's me. Like I said, my name's Naomi. I am from the Leicestershire area. I'm as mad as a can't speak for one, but I am as mad as a box of frogs. I am very honest about my life. I want to do all sorts on this channel, so you know, like I know you like my chit chat, so I want to do all sorts on this channel. Eventually I will share how much I was when I first started, and I am getting more to the stage where I might do now. But yeah, I want to do all sorts on this channel. I want to do like clothing try-ons. I want to do all sorts, so I will get there. I don't know whether I will venture more into how things went wrong, when I was younger. I may feel brave enough. My husband's told me I should write a story. He thinks that my story would benefit a lot of people. I mean, he was lucky. He grew up in a family that are still together, mum and dad, and you know, that's what I've had for my children. You know, and that's really nice. But yes, like I say, things were better when stepdad moved back in. Things were a bit more normal, but then they started having issues, and you know, things started to get a bit crap again. But I'm an adult now, and you know, I don't regret or I don't blame anybody for them memories, because I think if they hadn't happened and those things didn't happen, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Does that make sense? I think they have all happened to me for a reason. It's probably made me more of a compassionate person to people that have got problems. And, you know, I don't regret any of it. You know, I think it was wrong. I think it shouldn't have happened. But a lot of things that have happened in my life I don't think should have happened, and I think they should have been recognised. And sometimes I actually don't know how me and my brother didn't got taken into care, some of the stuff that had happened. But I wouldn't change it. Like I say, life wasn't always bad. Mum wasn't always poorly, and we did have a good relationship. Unfortunately, I think I lost a lot of my mum-daughter relationship with her because she was very poorly from, I think, 44. Her issues started. She had a stroke, and then there wasn't a lot towards the end that wasn't wrong with her. And I think, unfortunately, my relationship as a daughter had changed to carer, which I wouldn't have changed, but I think she pushed the boundaries a bit more than she should have with me. I think that she should have, you know, had probably more care in to help rather than me doing it all. And I think to a degree we did lose that relationship as mum and daughter towards the end. And it's been 10 years this year since I lost her. She died in 2015, very suddenly, and ironically nothing that was wrong with her medically. She died from a deep vein thrombosis that travelled, unfortunately, and killed her. But the last time I saw her was on the Sunday before she died, which was the day before she died. And we'd had such a lovely visit. The twins had all been and seen her. We all stopped. We'd helped to put a Christmas tree up. And my mum, love her, she liked a bit of a drama, liked a bit of a moan. And I remember walking away from that visit and feeling really happy, and said to my husband, that was really nice. Because sometimes you'd go and you'd be drained because something had happened, or, you know, my brother had done this, or something had gone wrong in the house. And I, as an adult, I'm very relaxed, very calm, and I don't like any of that drama. But yeah, we came away from that visit and we were like, oh, that was really nice, you know, and we had a really nice visit. She'd had a good cuddle with the twins, and because they were only very young when she died. And it makes me wonder now whether, looking back, she knew something wasn't right. You know, you don't know, do you? But, you know, and ironically, the day she died, bear with me, the day she died, we were at Slimming World, and my phone went. I knew she'd had an appointment because I said to her that my legs were sore. Where she'd got heart failure, so it wasn't uncommon for her legs to be sore. And I said to her, Mum, your legs don't look right, so get the GP out in the morning just to check everything's okay. Yeah, I will, she said. I'll get the doctor out tomorrow, don't worry. And she did. And the GP had just come out and said, I think it is just purely down to your heart. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop an ambulance down just so they can have a look, take you in, give you some blood clotting stuff. So she'd carer again. She had carers in at this point because the year before she'd been a very poorly laid, and I could no longer care for her. And what was I saying? Yeah, the carers had been in and got her all ready. And I remember texting her after school and saying, are you okay? Do you need anything? Are you ready? And she's like, yeah, we're all ready. Had a shower, changed, got my bag ready to go. I'm going to take my laptop because she liked being online. And so we got home, went to Slimming World. You know, we were at Slimming World at the time. And I used to help behind the counter. I used to weigh people in. And the phone went. And it was my brother saying, the ambulance had just been to pick Mum up. She's having problems breathing in the back of the ambulance, so you need to come. So my mum had been so poorly that wasn't uncommon. So we just thought we'd go and see her in hospital. She'd be sitting there saying, oh, you know, I've got a bit of asthma or whatever, and I couldn't breathe, blah, blah, blah. So we rushed from Slimming World. Little did I know she died at this point, but she'd got up to get out of her chair to walk to the wheelchair in the front of her bungalow, and she'd collapsed down and had the embolism had travelled, and yeah, she'd died, bless her heart. They got her into the ambulance, tried to bring her back, couldn't. But they told my brother apparently that she had breathing problems. Obviously, they were on the way to the ambulance. She was a big lady, so they couldn't bring her back. We'd travelled to this hospital, put in a side room, which alarm bells went when they did that to me, because I said to my husband, something's not right. But there had been a big car accident in Leicester at the time, a bus accident, sorry, in Leicester at the time. So we just assumed that it was because there was a lot of people about. And yeah, they put us in a side room, and the doctor walked through the door, and as soon as he walked through the door, I knew, and he just said we couldn't save her. And it was because this embolism had travelled from her leg to her heart in the time she'd walked to the front door. And because she was such a big lady, had so much issues with her, that, you know, she just wouldn't come back. And again, this is why I am determined to get this weight off, and I'm determined that I am not going to put my children through that. You know, she wouldn't want me to be sitting here all sad and, you know, crying and all the rest of it, you know, but I don't want that for my kids. I don't want my kids to have to bury their mum at 55. And realistically, I'm only, what, 11 years away from that, and I don't want that. I don't want that. I mean, I don't live the lifestyle my mum does. I'm not unhealthy like my mum was at my age. You know, my mum was working behind a bar, smoking 40 a day, drinking as well. You know, I'm nowhere near that, but you know, I am aware that if I was to fall poorly with anything, then yeah, it wouldn't be good for me, as I found out with my back. So there you go. That is a little bit more about me, and hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about my life, and you know, what brought on these issues that I've had in the past. What brought on my issues now, and that I believe it stems from the past. So sorry if it was a bit doom and gloom, but it just, you know, is a little bit about me. And you know, hopefully my sharing my story might help somebody else, you know. But please don't think by listening to my story that I'm talking ill of the dead, or I'm being awful to anybody, because I'm not at all. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because this is a half an hour video already, and I will see you all soon for the next weigh-in. Take care, everybody. I love you all lots. Bye.